Welcome to our Destination Rural podcast series. I'm Peter Rutherford. I'm the CEO at the Rural Doctors Association of Australia. And today we're talking to a medical student who has started their rural journey but still got a long way to go. RDAA, however, is doing its best to convert this city girl, a Brisbane girl, into a rural doctor. We're talking today with our own Olivia Dalton. For joining us tonight. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on. I'm in Canberra, and I think you are too at the moment. For the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, and pay my respects to elders past and current. So Olivia Dalton, who is a medical student at ANU, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit of your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I'm in Cooma at the moment, not Canberra. So it's a little bit colder on Narragansett country. So I acknowledge those people as well. And so I grew up in Brisbane. I did my primary school and high school in Brisbane. And then I moved to ANU for my undergrad in 2020, which was a great year to start uni.
Easy.
And then was, back and forth for a little bit, and then ended up in Canberra. And I've been at ANU ever since. So I started medicine 2.5 years ago now, so I'm halfway through my third year. And that's my background in terms of medicine, I guess. Anything specifically you'd like to know?
Yeah, we'll get into that. So you said you're at Cooma, that's your rural clinical school placement?
Yes, so I am, ANU does a full rural year in third year if you want to apply and get in. So I did that, and I preferenced Cooma. So I'm here for the full year with 3 other students, which has been great because we work in the hospital and through the 3 GP clinics, and basically anything that's happening we get to be involved with. So we can talk more about this, but I guess the perks of being rural here specifically and during med school is that it's always, one-on-one or one med student to 3 doctors or whatever. And they always get us involved. So in my, first 15 minutes of my very first placement here in Cooma Hospital, there was a met call to the ward. And usually if you're in a big city, you wouldn't be anywhere near that. But I was able to watch all that happen and then help manage as the situation unfolded. I helped manage holding the guy's head. He was having a seizure at the time. That just wouldn't happen anywhere else or in a big urban centre, I suppose. So that kind of stuff has been happening throughout the whole year. So I've had heaps of hands-on experience, which has been really great.
And with that, is the support good? Like, is it a good support network around you and plenty of advice and guidance, or are you feeling a little bit overwhelmed or thrown in the deep end?
It sort of comes and goes, I suppose. In Cooma specifically, we have lots of support. So we've got 3 teaching staff for the 4 of us, plus 1 admin staff. So in terms of staff to student ratio, is very high, and they're very approachable, and all the doctors are very approachable and kind. So anything that is happening or anything that goes wrong or we need support with or debriefing with, almost anyone we can go to and chat to. And the teaching is still very high quality because anything we need to do online, we do that. But you have very experienced doctors here who are all very happy to teach. And I think, like I said, in Canberra, you'd sort of be at the back of the room. So people might think that in urban you get lots of support around you, but I've heard that often it's maybe not always the case because you kind of feel a bit left out and you feel like people don't care so much if you're there or not, or Whereas here, people definitely care if you're there or not. They definitely notice if you don't show up, or they notice what you're doing. Which I mean, is
Is
good and bad at times, but yeah, but it has been really good. So yeah, I do feel supported for sure.
is it very competitive to get to do the rural placements during third year?
It is at ANU, yeah, depending on the year, but it definitely is. People don't, you have to do a full interview process, and people don't get in. Yeah, for sure.
So, what made you choose to do the rural year? What made you apply? Well, other than us, maybe, you know,
Working for RDA
yeah.
and Peter pushing me into go
I
rural,
did
it's
not.
great.
That's a lie. What
Slander.
made you what
Um,
made you decide to do the rural year?
yeah, I think for a long time I've considered doing rural. I mean, I started at RDA in first year, and I remember in my interview with you, Peter, to get the job, I was saying that I'm keen to be a rural generalist. And to be honest, at that time, I didn't have that much experience with rural. I grew up in Brisbane, but I think I've always just felt more comfortable in more rural settings compared to cities. And I've heard from other students that, like I said, that you do get more hands-on experience, and that you don't slip through the cracks so much, which is quite easy to do when you're in big cities. So I think it was that hands-on experience that uh, yeah, the hands-on experience and the lifestyle that sort of attracted me. Being in Cooma specifically, I like the snow and I like skiing, and there's lots of opportunity to go do that on the weekends, or switch around shifts and do a shift on the weekend and go during the week. So yeah, it gets a very good. I think almost every student that does the rural stream, I can only speak for ANU, but at ANU has a really good experience.
Yeah,
Not everyone, but almost everyone. Yeah.
yeah. And you mentioned you're working for us at RDAA, which, and we're very
Mhm.
happy to have you, and I really appreciate it. It's been a really nice level of energy that you and Pranesh originally, and now Jess has brought to the team. So we've loved having you guys as part of our team. But I guess as part of that, you've also been able to attend RMA a couple of
Mm.
times. How have you found that? And have you been to other medical conferences? And is there a difference, or are they really the only ones that you've been exposed to so far?
I'm just trying to think. I think RMA is the only ones I've been to. Um, yeah, that's the only one that I've been to as a student. So I guess I'll just talk about that. Yeah, no, I found it really great because everyone's super friendly. In the rural doctor sphere, you don't seem to get the same ego that maybe other specialties have. And so everyone's super happy to chat to me as a mere medical student, and give me advice, or just talk to me about life in general, or answer my questions. So in that sense, it's been great networking and finding out what it's like to work as a rural generalist. And it's also a lot of fun. The events are great, and the sessions are really fun too. Yeah,
So you'd highly recommend
I'd
RMA
highly
to
recommend.
others? Yeah.
Yes, highly recommend RMA to others. I think it's probably, uh, I'm sure it's the best conference in Australia, having not been to any others.
Any others? Good plug. Good plug.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you mentioned, like, when you first applied at RDAA, you were interested in rural generalism. Being in Cooma and that, are you still sort of thinking about that path, or has something else caught your eye, or is it rural all the way so far, but maybe not sure of the specialty, or what's your future plans, I guess, with rural medicine?
Yeah, I think it definitely has solidified my ideas that I do want to be a rural generalist. I think I like the lifestyle of being a GP for a few days a week and then doing something else for a couple of days a week. Um, and having different relationships with your patient in that way, and that you can have the continuity of care, and you can also have the I don't know, more acute stuff if you do ED or obstetrics. You can see there's some doctors here who, you know, literally gave birth to some of the patients that they now see in GP as adults, which is quite a crazy thing, I think. So yeah, and and Cooma is unique in that most of the doctors here are rural generalists. So it's been a really good experience of seeing what the lifestyle is like, and there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of breadth in what they do. And I think I like that about it. So yeah, it's definitely confirmed that this is most likely what I'm going to be end up doing. And I think after I finish at ANU, I want to do my internship, hopefully in Cairns if I get in, maybe, because I've heard really good things about it, and I've heard, you know, as a slightly bigger centre, it's good to get that exposure before, you know, in the future I'd like to go more rural and more remote, at least for a little bit. But I think it's important to get a little bit of exposure to a bigger hospital for a bit, to gain some skills, so you're not just thrown straight into the deep end. But yeah.
Well, being a Queenslander as well, I would highly recommend Queensland too. But
yeah,
you know, it's always
that's what I've heard.
The skills will let you go anywhere. But speaking of that, I know you did one of your clinical placements up at Tennant Creek. How did you find the NT in Tennant Creek, and what was different from Cooma?
Yeah, definitely very different to Cooma. And obviously I've only worked in Cooma Hospital, so being thrown into not just a different hospital, but also a different system with the NT health system was full on, definitely to begin with. But it was a great experience because they get, as you can imagine, in Tennant Creek being 5 hours from Alice, and I don't know how many hours from Catherine, but I think it's even further. They get a lot of, you know, we saw road trauma, and then you also have the the community in Tennant Creek has a lot of comorbidities and a lot of conditions that we don't see in Cooma, and so that was quite full on, but a great experience because it really gave me a good breadth of, I don't know, I guess it gave me a good idea of what actual remote Australia is like. I think Cooma's sort of rural light in that we're an hour and a half from Canberra, and so it's quite easy to just send someone down the road. It'll be an hour and a half max to get someone to a big tertiary centre, but it's not the same in a lot of places in Australia, and that's definitely the case with Tennant Creek. It's a situation of you have to call the retrieval and you have to get a plane down. And so if you're stuck in a situation where it's time pressured, you're the only ones. You have to deal with it, and you've got an x-ray and that's it, and an ultrasound. So yeah, I was definitely very impressed. I learned a lot of things being a medical student there, but I was also very impressed by the doctors working there. It was they were very highly skilled to be working in that environment. So yeah, great experience, very different. Would recommend to anyone who's interested in doing you know, experiencing the NT or going slightly more remote. It definitely opens your eyes to a lot of things about the Australian health system that I hadn't fully appreciated before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You've learned something, I think, that we spend at RDAM. We spend a lot of time trying to get others to understand that there's regional, rural, and remote, and they're all quite different.
Yes.
So yeah, so you've learned that lesson early.
Yeah, and even I was lucky to go to some of the you know, even remoter communities that just had medical clinics, and they don't even have x-rays. So they, you know, the remote area nurses that usually run these clinics are amazing. They're so impressive to do what they do. So yeah, lots of admiration for them. Yeah.
So you mentioned Cairns. Do you have any visions of where you want to end up longer term? Or like you talk about rural generalism, have you thought about what advanced skill you want to do or anything like that? or still decisions to be made in the future?
Yeah, still decisions to be made. I've been sort of saying GP obstetrics, maybe. Um, just because I like the idea of being able to see women through in that process and then continue to be their GP and then be their kids' GP and sort of all that seems really rewarding to me. But yeah, still up in the air a little bit. I haven't done that much obstetrics yet, so open to change. In terms of location, I'm not really sure. What I sort of have in my mind is I want a couple goats. I want a little hobby farm. I want a little veggie patch. and that's about it. Maybe a horse. That'd be fun. But yeah, very up in the air after Cairns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With your other medical student colleagues, I guess, what are the things you're looking for? Like, what are the things that are currently being discussed in relation to future jobs? Like, you know, what are the key things? Is it about pay? Is it about the type of work you do clinically? Is it about, the support for training? Like, or is it just so far in the future that that's not even a discussion point at the moment?
As in what? Yeah. Yeah, good question.
Like, where you want to
I think,
work?
yeah, what are people considering? I think I think pay does come into it because knowing that you could be on a higher salary somewhere else definitely makes people pause. Um, Support is a big one. So knowing that the training and the teaching is there, and I think that's where Cairns that's what attracted me to Cairns because I'd heard that a lot of the doctors there are very really like teaching, and for that reason, a lot of interns and students have had a really good experience there, and so it's well set up in that way. Yeah, and then I suppose just like any job, people's situations play into it, as in whether they have partners or kids or whatever. That's always a factor too. Um, but definitely pay and support are two big things. I think, and actually another thing that I've spoken about with people is future potential. So uh, the for example, things like the basic physician training pass rates at a particular hospital versus other hospitals. So that kind of thing, which is maybe reflective of training. And so I guess that pays into it too. Or if students are looking to get into a particular specialty, maybe they're looking at the prestige of a hospital or perceived prestige of a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose all of that kind of plays into it. Yeah.
So just on that, I guess, have you had an opportunity, whether at Tennant Creek or in Cooma or at any other placement, like to work alongside some of the visiting specialists that come to these communities? Because I think that perceived status often can be overestimated in relation to city hospitals versus, and depending on where, you're sitting as a junior doctor and how engaged you are with the team, the medical team, as to whether or not you could get a referee. But do you get any opportunity to work with some of the visiting specialists while you're on clinical placement?
Yeah, we do here. So we have pediatricians rotate through, and we've got orthopedic surgeons and gynecologists who, rotate through. So I suppose in that sense, we do. Coombe is quite small though. So if you wanted to go into surgical specialty, you wouldn't come to Coombe because you wouldn't get the exposure. But a place like Bega, for example, they do have permanent surgeons and things. So I think in that sense, yes, you would probably, and from what I've heard from other med students, you do get more opportunity to be hands-on in a surgery in a place like Bega, which is sort of middle-sized, and to get to know the surgeons and the specialists. Whereas, yeah, like you said, maybe in the bigger hospitals, you wouldn't. And so potentially, I think it's hard as a third year medical student because I'm not really sure about the process. I don't think they start talking to us about it until next year, formally. But this is just sort of what I've heard through the grapevine and through talking to doctors and things like that.
Doctors are good
Yes.
gossips. It's a good
Yeah, they
source of
do.
information.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, lots of doctors with very strong opinions about various things. Yeah.
What's been, I guess, something that you've heard about rural that you feel that myth has been busted as you've done your placements? Like some or a preconceived idea that you had of rural before you went to Cooma, before you went to Tennant Creek, that you
Yeah,
found just hasn't been true.
yeah, I think something that circulates is that you don't get the same exposure to maybe complicated diseases or presentations in rural as you do in urban. But from my experience, that hasn't been the case, because even though anything super acute or super complicated does get shipped off to Sydney or Canberra or wherever, as a medical student, realistically, you're not going to be seeing um, that complicated neurosurgery, or if you are, you're not really understanding, or you're way back on the back wall. But those patients are always coming back to Cooma, and they have to go from Cooma. And so I've actually seen lots of really interesting stuff that, talking to other people, they just go, what is that? So I think it's less structured in the sense that you don't have hematology. You're not doing a hematology rotation, for example, but you're just seeing that in the people that rotate through the ED or rotate through the ward or the GP clinic. So I don't think that's true. I think you definitely do get the exposure. I think if you want to do that super complicated niche surgery stuff, then yeah, go to a big city centre. But as a medical student, it's much more valuable to see the human as they go through the process and then come back. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's good. Yeah. It's just, different people as we go to different events and things like that, some medical students go, oh, yeah, I'm going to do my rural rotation, or a junior doctor, I'm doing a rural rotation, and it's at like Tweed Heads. And that's not what we count as rural. But
No.
so, yeah, it's it's interesting what some people perceive as rural, but also interesting to what they assume they will see when they do a rural rotation as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to Tweed Heads, for example, maybe that is going to be more GP focused. Maybe you won't be seeing as much. But if you're a bit further out, where you're the person it's the people in the town that are seeing these complicated patients and managing them, you're going to be a lot more hands-on and a lot more involved in the management of that patient, than if you were in the city with the same patient.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So just, I mean, lifestyle wise, you find like you're coping well you mentioned going skiing and that sort of thing, but you're enjoying the rural lifestyle.
Yes, everyone's very friendly. It's nice to have the four of us med students here, because it's sort of a built-in friend group. But I also played netball last semester, and that was really fun, just to meet some people, a lot of engineers around here with the snowy hydro and things. So a lot of young people, and there's line dancing on a Thursday night, which is a lot of fun, at the local bolo. So can recommend Cooma line dancing on a Thursday night if anyone's in the area. Yeah, there's heaps to do. There's heaps to do.
And is
Yeah.
that a big part? And I don't know the other medical students, but is that a big part of sort of, I guess, enjoying the placement, like getting the most out of the placement, is also to get involved with community?
Yeah, for sure. I think if you don't get involved with the community, even when I was in Tennant Creek, I ran the water for the local AFL women's team, and trained with them and stuff. And if you don't do that kind of stuff, you just see the hospital and you just see the sick people, and you sort of you don't get a feel so much for the community that you're in. But yeah, I found, and same with Cooma, but I guess it felt more intense in the Northern Territory, just because it was a lot different to what I was used to. But I could see myself living there, even if initially before I started playing with the team, I couldn't. I was sort of thinking, oh, I wouldn't have any people to hang out with or whatever. But if you get involved in community events and stuff, you meet those people and you find out what it's like living in a place. Yeah, and it was so much fun, and it just makes the experience so much better too. It's a lot less isolating and gets you out of that hospital environment, which is important because not your life shouldn't be totally medicine, which I think is the nice thing about working rurally, is that it very rarely is totally medicine. Everyone's got all their hobbies, which is great.
I was going to ask you if you could
Yeah.
give some advice to like a first or second year medical student about a rural placement. What would it be? But that may be it. But is there something else you would say?
Yeah, I think that's probably it. I think keeping, yeah, trying to get involved with the community, because it does, if you don't make an effort, it's like moving anywhere new for the first time. You have to make an effort to meet the people in the community. Yeah, and like I said, you don't get a feel for the town unless you get involved with the things that the town's doing. So that's definitely my advice. And find your little niche and find your people. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Have you
Yeah.
been given, and I ask nearly everyone I interviewed this, any, pearls of wisdom in relation to advice from a rural doctor, a mentor, or something you know, to sort of keep in mind along the way, or still too early yet to really
Mm.
get that to shape, you know,
Oh, nothing's coming to mind.
I'm sure it'll come. Someone will give you some.
Someone will give me something, but nothing's coming to the front of my net. It'll be tomorrow. Someone will
Yeah,
say something like, "Oh,
it'll
damn
be
it!
life
Should have
changing.
said that yesterday." Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more I've seen how different doctors operate, and I can see what I'd like to copy and what I wouldn't like to copy, and that's quite nice. And I like and in that sense, the doctors who have strong sort of work life boundaries, I suppose, I think is important, especially in a rural town. It's sort of a bit harder to do, I think. But it's very possible. And so I think that's something that's important to keep you sane, or to keep me sane anyway. Not everyone's the same, but maybe that's my little pearl of wisdom through just watching people.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
Liv, I'm going to let you go, but thank you for joining me
Cool.
on our
Thank you.
Destination Rural podcast series, and wish you the best of luck. And, we'll hopefully have you for at least another year. And obviously, at some point you might want to be a doctor and give up your RDAA admin career. But maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe this is.
Well, here's hoping I fail my end of year exams, then you'll have me
Oh,
another year.
no, not here's hoping. We do love to have you, though. All right,
Yeah.
Liv. Well, best of luck. Enjoy the rest of the year in Cooma. And then we look forward to welcoming you back to Canberra next year.
Thanks, Peter.